Function with Purpose Podcast. All things health, wellness, fitness, and education through the physical therapy perspective. I am Dr. Amy Bullock, owner and founder of Fortress Physical Therapy. Fortress PT is here to serve the Charlotte metro area by highlighting the importance of how and why physical therapy should be a part of your health and wellness lifestyle. Here we go. Welcome to Season 13, Episode 6 of the Function with Purpose podcast. Thanks for tuning in. Again, this is Dr. Amy here hosting with this lovely podcast. I can't believe we're almost done with Season 13. All right, this topic, a little bit of a mindset shift. I think as people and even the experience through physiotherapy, we tend to not put ourselves in a different mindset perspective, right? So today's topic is going to be limit the downsides. So what do I mean by downsides? So I like to think of this, I forget where I heard this. It might have been like a newsletter from James Clear or Justin Sua, who are pretty much like mindset coaches and like thought-provoking developers and changing the mindset into taking something negative and turning it into something positive by placing yourself in like a third-person point of view, right? So limit the downsides. What are downsides? Think of it like this. Downsides, or once you climb up a mountain, or the upside of the mountain, you go down the downside of the mountain, right? And life happens, right? And we do experience these downsides from time to time, whether it is this is a health, wellness, fitness, and recovery podcast. And, one does experience these downsides when it comes to physiotherapy. One does experience downsides to lifestyle choices. One does experience downsides to movement choices, right? So the first and foremost is, a downside is kind of like a negative experience. Understanding what not to do. Understanding how to take a negative effect and not experience that negative effect continuously. And we might still experience it, but we want to try to avoid that frequency or dosage, right? So limit the downsides, whether it's a patient that's coming in for physiotherapy to me, or even if it's something that's personal, right? Like creating healthier eating habits, creating better sleep habits, creating better movement habits, recovery pathways, and hydration, right? So I think what we have to do first, as with anything, is chase the upsides, chase the buckets, right? Chase the pillars of health, wellness, fitness, and recovery, right? So to me, the main pillars of creating a better health span and lifespan is movement, right? Getting movement in each day, sleep, creating a better sleep routine, fueling or nutrition, right? Specifically protein. Hydration, I have it as its own bucket. And stress management, right? Or recovery, right? So taking these buckets or pillars and chasing the upsides, going up the mountain and learning the things that go in each bucket that make you feel better. Simple, right? No, it's a journey. Chasing these upsides are a journey because we know Or now we recognize that we are coming off of a downside. We are coming off from a downside of the hill or mountain that what we experienced in the past, we know perhaps may have been a little bit more of a detrimental effect than to what we are expecting. That happens all the time. So it's about changing your mindset and literally assessing and reassessing what are the things that you can take from the downside and avoid or learn what not to do for the next chase upside the mountain. Right? Envision that. Envision just creating an upwards arrow, right? And up the mountain, and then you have a peak, and then you have a downside to the mountain. Mountains are always made like that. That's crazy, right? And we have to learn to navigate the upside to figure out the things that make us feel better. Maybe that's when you do come in for physiotherapy, that the home exercise program that was given to you, maybe for that shoulder niggle, instead of doing that home exercise program one time a week, maybe you're going to bump it up to once or twice, and maybe shift it from your warm up to the cool down portion of your workout. Or perhaps it might be just for a little while. Maybe you do need to come into physiotherapy a little bit more frequent in order to calm the symptoms that you're experiencing, in order to gain more consistency back into the gym again, right? So it's about that, going to the upside of the mountain, learning the things along the way that make you feel better and get over the hump. And then when you get through to the peak and then to the downside, is learning what not to do. Well, I came in for physiotherapy. I was coming in once a week for 4 weeks. I felt good. I was doing my home exercise program 2 to 4 times a week. When I'm on the downside of the hill or the mountain, maybe I bumped down my frequency of physiotherapy visits because my symptoms were getting better to 1 time a month, but I'm maintaining the home exercise program 3 to 4 times a week. It's making me feel good. Oh my gosh, this is great. Holy cow. My shoulder feels better. Right? But I know that when I came into physiotherapy going up the mountain, I wasn't helping myself because I wasn't in a home exercise routine prior to coming in for physiotherapy for my shoulder, right? I learned what not to do, i.e., sit and do nothing. I learned that supplementing my exercise workout time window with a specific home exercise program for my shoulder made me feel better. It made me get past the issue I was experiencing. Do you see that? Does that make sense? Can you envision that? Right? So we have to chase the upsides. We're always constantly chasing the upsides. We're doing the thing that makes us feel better, that makes us move better, feel better, function better, and perform better, right? So another example, and this has happened to me kind of personally as well, is, maybe you were on vacation for a full week and you did some exercise, you did your home exercise program. Maybe the sleep was off. Your eating patterns were way off. It kind of made you feel like poo-poo. But you knew prior to your vacation that you were chasing the upsides with your nutrition, specifically, that you were eating the basics, right? Like for me, I like oatmeal and fried eggs for breakfast. I like a lot of fruit throughout the day, maybe 3 to 6 servings of different types of fruit, just really depends. My body was consistent with that. My body liked that. My body liked the habit and the routine. But then I went on vacation and didn't splurge per se, but I did try some other things that were outside of my norm. Well, body didn't like that. So traveling and returning back to my normal eating habits makes me feel better, right? I'm focusing on my protein intake. I'm trying and attempting and even tracking back to that. I utilize MyFitnessPal. I'm tracking the upside because I already went through the downside through vacation, that the things that I were eating, maybe I overconsumed a little bit too much, but I've learned, right, that I know that I need to get back to the basics in order to make me feel better. So focusing on that protein intake, getting 1 gram per body pound weight, right? Getting back to my hydration status, give or take 100 ounces per day. Flushing out my system, feeding that water into my system to bring nutrients throughout my whole body, to flush it out. And what I mean by flush it out, I mean using the bathroom. Your body's a filtration system, and that's how it gets rid of unnecessary things. We use the restroom, urination, or a bowel movement. So I know that when I go on another vacation, I'm chasing the upside, right? I'm getting the consistency of eating my fruits 3 to 6 times a day. I'm eating my favorite oatmeal breakfast in the morning. I have a big ass salad for lunch. And then dinner, I have a nice piece of protein with a vegetable and some type of complex carb. And I have a little treat at night. Maybe on my next vacation, I'm still going to try to stick to the same things, but I'm not going to be super adventurous, right? I'm still going to test and try some things, but I'm not going to go overboard because I know what not to eat. And leading into a prime example is I remember when my best friend moved to Houston, all 4 of us best friends got together and we went to the rodeo and we're like, oh my gosh, we got to hit up some barbecue. Well, I suffered. Heavy, high content, fat oriented meat does not sit well for me. I knew after that experience that high fat content meat is not my jam. So I don't eat it. Or if I do, I know based on that downside experience that I learn what not to eat and not to overconsume, right? Because it did not make me feel good. So I get back to what does make me feel good, the upside of the mountain, right? Getting back to the basics, because the body likes routine and the body likes habit. So the goal is to limit the downside in that nutrition every time. I mean, I learn something every time I travel, whether it's a weekend thing or it's an intentional vacation. I pack the things or buy the things that I know fuels me, makes me feel good. But then I also, if I'm looking at a dinner menu, like, oh, that kind of sounds good. Let me try that appetizer. You don't have to eat the whole thing that's on the plate, right? Try it, experience it, see how it feels, right? And learn from the downside. If there was a negative connotation to that, it didn't make you feel good. Well, guess what? You know, on the next upside of the mountain, you're going to get back to the basics and know that there will be a downside, that you're going to avoid that the next time. Simple. So simple. But if you can just envision it, literally, like a little stick figure going up the mountain, they get to the top, they feel great, then a vacation happens, and then they're like, I'm going to give myself the grace that I'm going to experiment on 2 different menus throughout the week and see how I feel. Well, guess what? You're limiting the downside, or that understanding what not to eat that makes you feel worse, right? I know a lot of barbecue does not like me. I don't like it. It does not make me feel good. So that's a prime example of, things that, you're eating out in the wild or at the restaurant, right? That you're not accustomed to, but you don't go ham on it, right? You taste it, see what it feels like, and you know what not to do for the next future, right? So back to the basics. And another big thing, limiting the downsides. It's all about the things of what not to do. And that could be with personal work stuff, right? Maybe you witnessed someone, an interaction with someone or a colleague that wasn't really the the best thing to witness, right? Maybe that person got fired by their boss. And the way the boss fired them, quote unquote, fired them, was suboptimal. Maybe they could have done better. And you're thinking about the scenario or the situation. Like, what would you have done, or how would you have approached that employee to tell them or inform them that their season is over with the business, right? So I think it's this constant reminder for ourselves, no matter what situation we are in, health, wellness, fitness, recovery, personal, spiritual, mindfulness, that we need to try to think of ourselves as a fly on the wall, right? If I were looking at this from a third eye, how can I make that upside, yet alone downside situation a little bit more optimal, right? We always want to avoid the downsides. We do. We want to avoid the negative aspects that we experience, yet alone maybe put ourselves into. So how can we keep chasing the upsides even when we're in a downside situation? And it just comes back to basic fundamentals. The things that you were doing prior to the downside, what were they? Learn how to eat better or feel better. Learn how to sleep better. Learn how to move better. Learn how to recover better. Learn how to hydrate better. Here's another prime example that you might be able to wrap yourself around. Hydration. I don't like water. Well, I hate to break it to you, our body's made up of like 90% water. Like, our body needs water in order to survive. So you need to ingest some type of water, some type of liquid. But maybe you get together with friends on a weekend. Maybe it is a 2-night weekend or something. Maybe you go rent out a cabin or Airbnb and, you have a good time. You have some adult beverages. But I know that based on the past, and even in the college days, some things might have been a little too much that night, and you wake up the next day with a hangover. And it happened in the past, but I know from my personal experience, it does not make me feel good, right? So my approach to alcohol, I will drink it from time to time, but it's rare, maybe like once a quarter. Yeah, like 4 times a year. That when I ingest an alcoholic beverage, I tell myself and I provide myself with hydration before and after. And I also, afterwards, my go-to alcoholic beverage is more so a bourbon. So when I partake in drinking a bourbon, or maybe 2 at max, if I have access, or if I even thought of it, I'll bring one of those liquid IV packs with me, or maybe like a Gatorade G2 single serve packet stick, and I'll put that in my water after I have my bourbon. So I hydrate. And also, if I'm there with a weekend with friends, I'll do that in the morning. I'll have a liquid IV with a scoop of protein and my creatine in my shaker bottle the next morning. I now have recognized that when I'm in a downside, knowing that I put myself in a downside, a weekend participating in some adult beverages with my best friends or friends, that the downside to adult beverages is not feeling good, right? Like, I know that I'm going to limit myself to alcohol intake, but then I'm also going to hydrate myself because it makes me feel better so I can function the next day. So I've learned based on experience that that is my basic thing to incorporate when I'm in this downside situation. And that's okay, right? Being in downside situations are fine. We just have to learn and recognize that chasing the upsides can still be incorporated into the downside of the mountain. But we want to limit as much of the downsides or the things on what not to do so that you can still feel your best, function your best, move your best, right? So that's another prime example. Maybe in your next situation, if you are in maybe a work event and you do participate in an alcoholic beverage situation, adult beverage situation, that maybe you will have your bourbon and then you're going to have maybe a seltzer water after with a lime or lemon in it. That's okay, right? You're still giving yourself a limiter to the downside and seeing what those effects are. And if those effects the next day make you feel good, well, guess what? You just chased an upside when you were in a downside. How cool is that, right? So life happens. But the more we place ourselves in these learning environments and the more that we can kind of, be that fly on the wall and have that third eye point of view that how can I make this scenario just a little bit better for myself? How would I approach my colleague or my employee knowing that, maybe that employee might not be working for me anymore? How can I ease the situation and make it a win-win for both of us, right? Limit the downside. Chase the upside, but limit the downside effects. And then even when it comes to physiotherapy, right? You don't have to be in physiotherapy 3 days a week for 365 days or a year, right? Like, there might be moments in time where you maybe experience more intense symptoms and you might have to be in physiotherapy 2 times a week for 1 or 2 weeks, and then you start building a home exercise program and balancing that out as you kind of pull yourself a little bit away from the clinic in your clinician, that the upside that you learn is that your home exercise program is bridging the gap when you're away from your team of people, your therapist, right? Because you're limiting that downside effect. You're learning what not to do when you're away from the thing that's helping you, right? So it's about that balance. You're limiting those downsides, and downsides are going to happen no matter what we do. So thanks for hanging in there. Salute if you have a coffee in hand, and we'll see you on the next episode. That's a wrap for today's episode, Function with Purpose Podcast. For more information on this episode, please check out the show notes within your podcast app. Be sure to subscribe, like, share, or drop your comments and questions below. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Google, YouTube, and LinkedIn. Thanks for the listen. Pursuit, precision, purpose.